All right, we're live. Welcome to the Global Phys Ed Boxcast. This is another episode of the Talking Heads, and I thought it'd be awesome to get some educators from around the world together and talk about distance learning because I think a lot of people are in situations where their school has been or could possibly be closed down for an extended period of time because of the coronavirus. So we just got shut down this week here in Saudi Arabia, and we are kind of venturing in this uncharted water of distance learning and trying to figure out how to manage all that. So I thought it'd be interesting to get some perspective from educators from around the world and see how they have been managing as well. So to start off, what I would like to do is just kind of go around and introduce yourself and tell us where you are in the world. So on my screen, Jace is next. So Jace, you want to start us off?
For sure. So I'm Jace Ferguson. Currently, we are in Macau, and I'm teaching at the International School of Macau, which is an Alberta accredited school teaching Alberta curriculum in this beautiful country in Macau.
Awesome. Mel?
Hi, I'm Mel Hamada. I teach PE and health at the International School of Beijing, but currently I'm in Canberra, Australia.
And Mark?
Mark Vatsis, and I'm currently in Singapore working at the Canadian International School.
All right, so I wanted to ask everybody how they are doing with this distance learning idea, or how your community is handling this this coronavirus outbreak, and how things are going for you guys. So, Jace, would you mind starting us off with that? How's it going for you, and where is your school at right now with the whole distance learning and handling of this outbreak?
For me, I have to think that the one thing I really had to be mindful of, just being flexible and mindful of what's going on. Like, this is completely uncharted experience for a lot of us. Like, not a lot of us have experience teaching digitally, purely digitally. So it's been a lot of trial and error and embracing that I'm going to make mistakes. My students are going to be seeing that and let them know, like, hey, this is new for me too. And so they see it. Our school's been this is very new waters for them as well. We have a young administration, and they've been doing their best to give us support and give us instructions, but also what's been communicated by the governing authorities has been kind of reactive and last minute or communication pieces. So they're doing the best they can to stay on top of things, but it's kind of just really painting the image of it. This is a really unknown time, and it's having that impact on like our students' learning, communication, how things are going.
So you were in Canada not too long ago, is that right?
Yeah, so when we got notification, so it would actually been the last day of January, the day before we left for Chinese New Year. We got told like classes will not be resuming after Chinese New Year. There was no set timeline how long classes would be suspended. So we decided, okay, we'll stay here for Chinese New Year and we'll see what happens. We only had the impression it'd be only a week. So we're now moving into the week after Chinese New Year, which is the first week of February. And we're getting communications that it's going to be indefinite until further notice. And we kind of started to see what's happening in the community. We just moved to Asia this past August. So it's just kind of, we're still trying to figure out our lifestyle here.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we really saw was there's a lot of panic. And to be respectful of that, like they had the SARS epidemic here. We actually have one of the hospitals that were built like right behind our house. So we had to be really mindful of that, but that also fed into like a lot of panic buying. The parks and facilities are all being closed down, and we're being asked to just stay inside your homes. So it was at that point, like at this point, our school said, "You guys need to go anywhere you like. Here's your expectations for the online learning, and go ahead." So I think it was like one day we just came home. We tried to go out for a hike, take my daughter out for a hike, and we couldn't go anywhere. Okay, we don't know what's going to happen. The level of uncertainty is just not okay with us. Let's just go home and experience winter for the first time in a few years. And we were actually there the past 4 weeks, and we just came back to Macau on Monday, where things have really started to settle down.
All right, that's good to hear that things are finally kind of settling down and everybody's getting kind of, used to this new reality. So Mel, what about you? What has your experience been like thus far?
Um, this is the 6th week that we've been on e-learning and the 7th week that we've been away from Beijing. We were actually in Japan for Chinese New Year when our flights were cancelled back, when the Trump administration decided to start cancelling flights, US and China. Everyone just freaked out. And so the flights that we had cancelled were cancelled. And so we made the decision to fly home, like Jace, to see family, because we didn't know how long this would go on for. It's a mixed blessing, I think, for us as a family. We get to hang out as a family together for a long period of time, but it's also been very challenging to try and be a parent in this situation where we've got 3 kids that we're trying to keep actively learning, but also the biggest challenge, I think, right now, as we move further down this funnel of learning, is for them to find friends. The socialness of school, of seeing your fabulous friends and playing sport and hanging out together, is what's missing for us now. I think our school has done an incredible job of communicating very clearly to the community when they know what's happening as updates come in and how that's affecting the school, but they're also trying to do a super job of balancing parent expectations of young people that are trying to finish their education, especially our grade 12 kids, and trying to make sure that what the staff are doing is valuable and meaningful education. It's not busy work for busy sake. We're doing a super job of polling our students to find out how they are doing and to find out where they need more support. But I think the longer this goes on, things do get easier in some respects, but also I think we need to be much more aware of people's mental health and wellness. One of my students I spoke to last week had not been outside in 5 weeks. He's been in his house for 5 weeks.
Wow.
And we need to check in on our kids. Like that sort of thing worries me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk more about your blog in a minute because I know you had a lot of advice in your latest blog about, self-care and how to handle some of those things. So we'll definitely come back to that. And I'll put a link to the blog in the show notes too, because I thought it was really good advice for a lot of teachers kind of venturing into this distance learning world that like you said, it takes you out of your routine and it takes you out of that face to face. And I understand why, but that's also something that you have to kind of try your best to try to be prepared for and handle. So I do want to talk about your blog in a little bit, but Mark, I want to give you a chance as well. What is it like in Singapore? What's going on?
Things, to be very honest, and just watching how the world is responding to this, and being in close touch with so many international school teachers that I've connected with over the years, being in Asia, and sharing stories and learning about how other countries are handling this. My hat goes off to the Singapore government, and not only the government, but how my school personally and other schools have been responding to this. They've taken a very kind of no panic type philosophy and just try to stay calm. And, pardon me, one thing the school hasn't done is we haven't shut down yet at all. And we're trying our best to avoid that, but also follow obvious, regulations and keep our kids safe and our teachers and the community safe. So what we've been doing is just following what the Ministry of Manpower and the government has, set out for us, like following their guidelines. So it kind of keeps everybody under the same guidelines. No one's, you don't have one school saying, "Oh, we're doing this," and then everyone following suit, or, we're following what the government tells us to do. And they've taken a very, they're taking this very serious. They've dealt with the SARS issue years ago, so they're they're kind of well prepared. And I find Singaporeans in general, they're quite compliant people. So they, with and they trust in their government. So it feels like everyone's just, there is that fear factor, but it's under wraps, I find. And the school, when we got back from the Chinese New Year holiday, I mean, that's when the big, the numbers started to grow quite rapidly, and we were wondering what's happening, what are we going to do? Our school got, together very quickly, our senior admin, and they put things into place right away. And so, transparency, I think, is a key word as well with the government in our school, that we've done very well to keep people calm. And so, yeah, I find now things seem to be changing as of this week. It seems like the numbers are starting to go. The Prime Minister just put out a talk or a speech yesterday. So things might change, but for now we're still in school, and we're heading out on our March break this week. So things might change, but we're ready for whatever's coming next.
That's good to hear that everybody's kind of still staying calm. I think with us, it's not that there's a panic, but we live in a small community here in Saudi Arabia, and a lot of people, there's a lot of rumors that circulate in these small communities, and so
Absolutely.
That's one of the difficult things that I found in the last couple of weeks, where there's different people talking to different people, and then these rumors get overblown, and then people start saying, oh, we're all going to be sent home, or we're all going to be, there's these catastrophic things that are coming our way, and it's not necessarily the best thing to kind of have your ear to some of those rumors, because like I said, they could get overblown. And any little rumor that gets sparked, people rush to the supermarket and buy all the toilet paper, or buy all the canned foods or something, and it's like, I think we're gonna be okay, but it is also at the same time important to kind of take those precautions, right, and kind of be ready for whatever comes your way. So Mel, I did want to ask you again about your blog, and about some of the messages that you sent out in the blog on how to handle some of these distance learning activities. And one of them that I thought was, I think it was like the first one that you had listed, that I thought was obvious, but something you don't really think about, is keep it simple. And so my kids have been doing distance learning for the last couple of days, and I've kind of tried to help them kind of navigate through this digital learning space. And some of the tasks that they've been asked to do in a very short time are really lengthy and complicated and difficult. And it's like, you can't do that in 30 minutes, and then the next class expects the same thing, and the next class expects the same thing, and in a short time they're already feeling a little overwhelmed. So could you talk a little bit about that? How do you manage that in your class, and how do the teachers around you kind of manage how much is too much?
That's a great question. How much is too much? I think sometimes we tend to forget that we are educated people who've probably been teaching for some time. I often think back to when I leave notes for a cover teacher. So if you have a substitute teacher come in, and I'll write a page of notes, and they'll be like, I didn't understand what this meant. So I've been trying to be really, really purposeful about the fact that often I'll have a very clear idea of what I think I've said, but then sometimes what the kids are doing, I'm like, how did they get to that? Like, where did that come from? So we've had lots of conversations in our department about this. We do things a little bit differently. So on the learning management support system that our school uses, I will set a task for my kids every day we would have had a class. So I see my kids every other day. So this week, for example, today I posted a task, and it's, as I have said in my blog, I'll generally at the top of the task, I'll put the date, even though it comes up through the learning management system, like an email that says when it was sent. I like to be very clear about when I posted it. And then I'll tell them how many things I'm posting that day. So I might say, this is task number 1 of 2 things. So make sure you don't miss someone. And then within that post or within that task, every link is there. So they don't have to go anywhere else to find anything else. It's all very central. I figure if they're having 5 classes a day and teachers are setting things up all over the place, they're already really stressed trying to find the right thing. I'm trying to be very explicit about the expected time I'm expecting them to be doing this. And I've requested that they let me know if it takes longer than that, so that I'm building a picture of what is an expectation of their time. And then I'm linking the learning outcomes so that parents are very aware of which standard or which part of the unit we're up to. So it all links back together. When I have kids that need particular support, I will try and have conversations with the learning support teacher or the EAL teacher in advance. And I've been trying to leave audio recordings of my task so that the kids can listen to it. And then the activities are posted. I've actually ended up using PowerPoint. We can't use Google here. I've been using PowerPoint so that I'll have a PowerPoint slide that has today's date and the learning outcome on it. And then all of the resources will be in that PowerPoint so that every lesson they're going back. And it means that all the previous lessons work are all there for them. They can always go backwards and forwards and find all of the activities and links all in the same document. I really wanted to be mindful about what I was going to do for children that didn't have their computers from school and so didn't have their previous notes or previous access to activities. Sometimes our kids are working from shared computers, so I have the computer for an hour and then you have it for an hour. Some of the kids are working off phones, so I really wanted to try and streamline this process for them to try and make it as simple as possible, to allow them time and ease of access to the work. I also wanted to be mindful for me. I don't know how long this is going to go on for, but if we, for example, go back to school in a couple of weeks and I'm still in this unit, I wanted to make sure for me that I still had all my resources and documentation in a way that I could continue teaching when we come back face to face without losing everything.
So what kind of how do your students communicate with you that they've done the task, or how do they communicate their learning to you?
So there's different ways of doing it. Through our LMS, the kids can leave a comment. So often I'll ask them to comment on the work using a visible thinking routine. So instead of asking them to regurgitate a fact or something we could Google, I'm asking them to share with me 3 interesting things from the reading or the videos or the resources that I've shared with them. I'm asking them to tell me what they used to think and now what they think about it. I'm asking them to create, for example, write a scenario that takes into account the 3 main points that there's been raised in the learning today, and then to reply to someone else's. So there's a format for that. I've also been using Flipgrid to allow kids to record responses and video responses and then reply back to each other using that. So those are the main tools that I've been using. I've been screencasting with kids. So if I need to go through something, I'll record my screen and then send that out to kids. So in my health unit, I created a presentation and then taught via screencast, went through the whole presentation and then sent them that so they can read that through or stop or pause or go through. And then I also had a worksheet that they had to complete while watching the screencast, and then they had to upload something from that. And then at the moment I'm trialing using Kahoot. Kahoot have allowed a pro version use, so some other different tech companies are now coming on board and offering pro licenses. So Kahoot was one of them. And so I've been creating quizzes that kids can do in their own time. It's like a ghost challenge. I set it up over a number of days and then they can go on and look at it in their own time rather than trying to run it as a class Kahoot. So, or Quizlet's another one that I've been using. So it's just a matter of what tools you're used to using and what works for you. But I'm trying to be repetitive and not engage in too many new different things for kids.
And Jace, what about you? How have you been sort of managing your distance learning? What kind of tools have you been? I guess what kind of activities have you been asking of your students, and what tools have you been using to communicate that?
So, and like I think Mel hit the nail on the head, like just keeping it simple. Like when I was establishing just even the first week of e-learning is like my philosophy behind this is keep it straightforward, keep it simple. There shouldn't be any twists and turns. There's already enough of that going on right now. So the students should be able to know what to expect from me in terms of communication out, how to apply that, and what kind of tasks they have to be doing. So kind of similar to what Mel was doing at the beginning of the week. I call my week at a glance, where at the top, week at a glance, here's our date, here's our concept we're going to be covering. And then below that are the steps and tasks. So task 1, task 2, task 3. Oh, reminder, we're going to be having we usually use Google Hangouts to do our face-to-face and just check in with our students and if they have any questions. Here's our time for our Google Hangouts. And then connected to that, it's going to be actually a document, which is a lesson plan. So I'm also teaching phys ed and social studies. So I'm kind of doing things same, but different, where with my social studies, I have a class that's taking provincial achievement exams, so they have to be hitting specific outcomes by specific dates so they're prepared to write this exam. So it's been kind of outlining what are the tasks going to be, and then at the end of the week, can I give the kids all week to do this task? They have to show me some sort of learning product. It could be just visual notes. I usually change it up however it goes each week, just like a formative check where I could go back and say, okay, this is what you produced to me. Check to see if the learning's there. I've kind of removed myself from the process, and that's just me having a little insight. Okay, what do we got here? Maybe we need to go back and have this conversation via screencast. But that's how I'm formally checking with my students if they got it or not, by looking at whatever product they submit to me by the end of that week. I've been very, very mindful of the time it's taking them to do it. Like if I could do the task in, let's say, 15 minutes, I'm multiplying that by 4 because like Mel said, we're educated, we're adults, we know how we work. Students are not at the same level that we're at, so we need to be really mindful of that. So I've been trying to be really mindful, keeping that in the forefront, but also realizing that they have a ton of work from other schools. Like you and I were talking about this before we signed on, is there's just lots of stuff being given to the kids everywhere. And I don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution the best I can. So making things simple for the kids so they can still show me they get their learning, keeping them straight and just keeping them consistent. Because the one thing everybody needs right now is just consistency. And they know what my routine is. They kind of establish what their routine is, and we've worked off that. But it's taken 2 to 3 weeks to get in that flow, and now it's just kind of rolling with it. So it's been really great to get to that point. Most of the products we've been using, like we can access Google here in Macau, so it's been a lot of Google Classroom. If a kid had any questions, they could contact me via Google Hangout. So I actually have Google Hangout on my phone. So when I was in Canada, like there's a 12-hour time difference right there. So if a student had a question, they could send it to me in Google Hangout. It goes to my phone as a text message. I can respond to them right there and then, or when I wake up because suffering from jet lag. When I'm up at 5 in the morning, I respond to them there and say, hey, let's answer your question. I can even send them little audio clips as well, and even just a little screencast like this is what this assignment is. So it's been a lot of helping them with their individual needs through Google Hangouts, but a lot of the material's been distributed through Google Classroom, using Google Docs, a lot of YouTube, like especially with my grade 9s. Right now we're doing economics. So you can just imagine how fun economics is in person, let alone distance learning.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find a way, and I've used a lot of the crash course clips before. And if you haven't done crash course history courses or seen them, they're really entertaining. They're fast, but students can slow it down, and there's lots of visuals. And I've been kind of using some of those because we could either read it through a textbook, or we have this engaging, colorful, cartoonish yet informative way to do it. So I've been kind of looking at what other resources are out there. Because the one thing I don't need to do right now is reinvent the wheel. There's probably people who've been doing this a lot longer than I have, who've created great resources. Let's use that and apply that, because that's the one thing I need to keep mindful of as well is, am I working harder or am I working smarter? Because just like Mel said, I also have a little one. She has online lessons, and I got to do that and do my work. I actually got an email the other day saying, it's like, we wish we had more evidence of your daughter doing your schoolwork. And like, we're trying to find that balance.
Yeah, I saw a tweet that you sent out not too long ago. Your daughter's in pre-K, right?
Yeah, she's in pre-K, so we actually had her first online lesson yesterday.
Uh,
And so pre-K, for everyone else doesn't know, is like she's 3 years old and her classmates are 3 years old. And my hat goes off to her teachers because this was watching. I walk into pre-K and it's like watching somebody trying to herd butterflies, but now they're doing this in a digital format, and
yeah.
the patience and the love that those teachers still demonstrated in that situation, I'm like, my hat goes off to you, because at that point I would have been like, all right, we got to shut this meeting down, we got to restart again, because and they're also 3 years old, so like my little one, she did pretty good sitting there, but then halfway through she was getting the wiggles and the jiggles, and but they did a really good job keeping them engaged, asking them questions, just like what's going on, how are we tying that into our current unit of studies, because they were doing like water learning and whatnot a couple weeks ago, so they're bringing that back up. So it's interesting to see that and to see how it's looking in other teachers' lenses as well.
Yeah.
Because right now, like I don't know, like I'm sitting here in a cafe, I have two colleagues beside me. I don't know what they're doing. We're all kind of working in islands right now. And like even just hearing from Mel, like the stuff she was doing, I'm like, hey, we're kind of doing the same thing. And I think right now when we're getting to this point, we all need to realize, maybe reach out to each other. It's like, hey, what are you doing? Because it's really easy just to get on this island right now.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I thought it'd be a good idea to bring everybody together like this, so that people who are in the same boats, people who are in the same situation, can say, that's something that we've done, that's something that we've tried. We're going through the same kind of stresses, so to speak. And I think another part of Mel's blog was that kind of stood out to me was that support piece, right? And I think not only do we have to support our kids and our families, but we have to support each other in a certain sense as well, to let people know that they're not alone. And so, Mark, I wanted to ask you, in your situation, I'm sure you're getting asked a bunch of different questions, and your students are, your students and your families have certain worries about what's going on in the rest of the world. How do you kind of manage that support side for your kids and your families?
Yeah, the parents are, they've been pretty good, actually, the parents, because that, of course, they have a worry about how things are going to look maybe next week or in a month from now. But I got to say, hat goes off to our administration, because the transparency has been fantastic. We have a platform that parents can go to, MyCIS. There's a daily update for whatever we're doing in school related to the COVID-19. And so they can go to that first. And then there's kind of a protocol, on how they want to handle any questions. If they have questions for teachers, there's an email that can be sent, and then the administration gets it first, and then they can try to answer it, or they send it off to the proper teacher to get back to the individual. So there's kind of a set structure on how questions are being answered. For teachers, we're kind of lucky because we haven't had to shut down yet.
Yeah.
And so our administration set up, a protocol on how teachers are going to handle this in the case. And I kind of was wondering that as well, George. Like, you guys shut down. I was wondering, how did you guys prepare in advance for that to happen? And if so, what steps did you take to make sure, like, I think the key is that we're all on the same island, not the separate islands. I think that's a big concern for a lot of teachers, is what are we going to do if this were to happen? And I'll talk after about how we've done that. I'm just curious to know how your school is prepared for that.
Yeah, so it was kind of sudden in Saudi Arabia. We had met as a as a whole school. So the way it's set up here in Kaust is there's a kindergarten school, early learners, and I'm part of the kindergarten team. There's an elementary school, and then there's a secondary school. And
Right.
what we did, we met as a whole school, and we kind of considered, this kind of happening, right? So our director kind of spoke to us and said, this is a possibility. This is what's going on in the rest of the world. Um, just be ready, right? So then we broke off into our divisions, and we created a just like sort of a rough draft plan, so an emergency plan to say if we had to shut down tomorrow, what are the key elements that we would have to communicate to our students. And so obviously it would be different for everybody. So in our kindergarten, we're a play-based kindergarten, and so we created a resource with links to all kinds of different videos and tasks and things like that that the kids can continue their learning in a fun way, and then resources for the parents to be able to deliver that content, right? And so it was a very rough draft. And then so everybody did the same thing. The elementary did the same thing. The secondary did the same thing. And so they had an idea of the direction that they would take. And then we went to school on a Sunday. We go to school from Sunday to Thursday last week. And the next day, we got the news that everything had been shut down. All the schools
Wow.
in the
Yeah.
kingdom were shut down. Uh, and and so what we did is we met for 2 days to create documents and create a solid plan that we could share out to all of our students and all of our families. We're in a sort of unique situation because we are in a compound, and so everybody here on the compound that goes to our schools is a part of the university, in the Kaust University. And so the school provides them with a lot of different resources and technology. So everybody was sort of on the same page there, right? So I know in some other schools you have different scenarios where some kids might not have the same resources, but here, for the most part, everybody has similar resources. So we created some documents and some things that we could share with the parents uh, that were very, very detailed, and we had these learning systems in place. Like in the kindergarten, we use Seesaw a lot, and so we use what the parents were familiar with already in order to communicate the learning that's going on at home. So in the kindergarten, we've been using Seesaw a lot to communicate through the different posts, and then the students communicate back. And so yesterday, I spent a lot of time on Seesaw watching all the different activities that the kids were doing and posting, and then commenting on that, so we could have that sort of interaction. Doing like a voice comment and saying, "Hey, great job! I see you exercising, and I see you, having fun. Great job doing that. That kind of thing."
Right.
And then so for my kids, they're in secondary school, so it's kind of the same scenario where uh, they're communicating through Google Classroom and Google Meet, and in Google Meet they have to actually attend class every day. The teacher takes
Oh,
their attendance, and it's a virtual class, and then they give them their assignment, and then they go off and do the assignment.
what grades is that for? Sorry.
So all of secondary school for us is
Okay.
sixth grade through 12th grade. Now,
Right.
so we're an
Okay.
IB school, so the DP program is a little bit more intense. So it's 11th and 10th, 11th and 12th grade, a little bit more intense, and it requires a little bit of other things. But for the most part, they're meeting digitally, they're doing assignments digitally, they're still doing group work, but it's all on Google Meet or platforms like that.
See, it's interesting, like just hearing how you're using Seesaw. Sorry, excuse me. Like my daughter's teacher's the exact same way, and that's kind of the cool thing about this whole situation is you and her would have had no way of collaborating, but there's promising practices that out there that are people are just kind of walking into and creating and making it work for their situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my daughter uses Seesaw all the time, and that was where we were showing her evidence of work is like, can you upload a video of us? So we had to play with water. So we were in Canada and we used the snow that was around us. Like, hey, what happens to water when we leave it inside, and did a little experiment. And we just submitted that to show, okay, she's learning what water does and kind of addressing the concepts that's covering. So it's kind of cool to see how schools that are a world apart almost are doing things that are very, very similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it makes me think about sorry, Mark. It
No,
makes
no,
me
go
think
ahead.
about like the future of distance learning or education in general, right? Because these things that we're trying out right now, and these things that are sort of new, and we're kind of repurposing some of these platforms that we have, it can lead into um, breaking down some of the barriers to education. And so I'm interested to see, you know, after this panic and after this craze and after this whole thing is over, how different education can be because of the this sort of new frontier that we're kind of uh,
Yeah.
you know, breaking through, right? Like I'm really interested to see how that works, because I do feel like this is new for a lot of people, and it's opening the eyes of a lot of educators to say we don't have to have these boundaries, we don't have to have these walls anymore. We can do new and innovative things, you know, and we can extend the learning and education into the community and into the home. And this is how we've been doing it.
Well,
Absolutely.
and I think of it like you said, like challenging traditional ways and breaking down these walls and barriers. Like one thing I'm really curious to see is the new practices in terms of pedagogical development and delivery of lessons. Like how is that going to impact your in-person teaching? I saw a great just infographic last night that was shared out about how like the best structure for online learning. Now, can we transition that into face-to-face teaching? Because there's a lot of really good stuff in there that challenges a lot of traditional thought, traditional thinking. And it'll be interesting to see how this maybe evolves our practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, did you want to say something on that?
I was just, I agree with everything that you were talking about, because it's opened up my mind and my eyes, and I know it has for a lot of our teachers as well, on how things will look later on. It also, it's kind of, I don't know, in a sense, it's kind of forced people to learn new skills as well, right? Because not everybody is on the same page with how we use technology in our classrooms. And when, you know, with regards to how we're sending out our information or communicating, like teachers now have to use Google Classroom from grades 4 to 12.
Hmm.
Manage back is a big one. Hapara, Google Hangout. This if CIS moves into a virtual school for a few weeks, all teachers have to be on the same page. This is how we're setting out our student-teacher communication, and so it's it's neat to see how well some teachers are in a bit of a panic, but they're going to have to learn real quick on how to use all this technology. I thought it was also neat to see, and that's why I was curious, George, to see how you were using or getting the message out to your kids, because we're doing the same with our nursery grade 3. We're using our Seesaw, and then from 4 to 12, we're on Google Classroom, and that's how we're going to roll out things if we do move to the virtual school. And I really want to, I just want to talk a bit about how well we've, our principals and our admin have organized. They've given us a graph on the number of tasks we need to do each day for each grade level.
Hmm.
And, for, example, grades 1 to 6, their math, literacy, their UOIs, art, drama, music. It's all broken down for each day on how many minutes need to be given instruction to each of those classes. So I think it's pretty neat to see how organized things are, and it sounds like your school was very well organized as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the rollout was definitely it was done well, and it was pretty smooth. It was pretty smooth, and everybody was excited about it. You know, even my kids were like they
Yeah.
were excited about how it was
Yeah.
all going to work out. Um, I think that said, there still be some growing pains. You know, and
Absolutely.
we have to adjust as we go along. And I think that's the other part that, you talked about, people kind of being forced to use these digital platforms and technology, in not in a bad way, right? You have to learn these
Right.
things to kind of evolve, to kind of move forward, and to a certain extent, you also have to be flexible and have an open mind. You're kind of being forced to be flexible and have an open mind because of the situation that we've been put in, and we can't do anything about it, right? So we're in a brand new situation where everybody's doing distance learning and everybody's doing some sort of digital learning, and you have to be flexible and adapt. And so tomorrow it might look not completely different, but it might look different from what you did yesterday.
Yeah.
And as a physical education teacher, I think we see this a lot in our classes where we have to adjust on the fly. um, and we're used to that, right? But in a more controlled sort of environment, sometimes uh, I feel like sometimes we kind of fall back on those routines, and now that's all been jumbled up and shifted. So we have to be sort of on our toes and be able to adapt. And so I think, as we move forward, it's a good lesson for educators to learn as well, that we have to be flexible and we have to adapt. And like Jay said, I'm curious to see how that's going to translate when we get back into our classrooms.
Absolutely. And I think, the talking about those islands, like it's also a wonderful time. I know we all, or I believe we all try our best to collaborate with our teams and be on the same page. But
Mm-hmm.
here's the time where that I believe must happen. You have
Yeah.
to, I'm in a very big school, the biggest I've ever worked in. We have about 10 on average classes per grade level. So if you're not all delivering the same content, that could create a bit of a problem and then with parents, they communicate
Yeah.
in the community a lot. So it's like, oh, my daughter's doing this, and why aren't you guys doing the same type thing? The collaboration needs to definitely be tight, and it's I don't know, it's a unique time, but I think it brings out true character, brings out hopefully the best in educators and see what they can really do. It's neat to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Mark, like I think you said something really powerful there. Like this is a great time to collaborate. Like in our situation here, we were asked to come back on March 8th. So now that all the teachers are back, we have the opportunity to collaborate. But before that point, we had teachers everywhere in the world, like just like our students. So we had a lot of students go just everywhere. Like I was teaching the kids who were in Switzerland, Spain, and now that we're coming back, um, granted it's 5 weeks into the process, but it's just getting together. Like before our conversation, I'm sitting here in this cafe with my colleagues talking like, hey, what have you guys been doing? What are some things that we can kind of learn off each other? Very informal, very relaxed, but it's something that definitely is missing. Actually, as I'm talking, two more colleagues come up here as well, so we're having an unofficial staff meeting, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And it kind of goes back to that face-to-face interaction that's important, right? And we have to figure out how that's going to happen, and whether it's in a digital format, or like you said, you have students all over the world sometimes, or meeting at a cafe. I think those things are important, and I think it's important to continue those practices. So I wanted to talk a little bit about resources as well. So I had an idea right before we got on the chat here. I had been posting these podcasts on the Glide app. And so the Glide app is just basically, you get a Google spreadsheet, you put a bunch of information on there, and it creates this app for you, right? And anybody can download the app. So I got to get back to that on the on the podcast side, because I kind of went away from it and I thought it was a cool thing, and then I never updated it. So I definitely have to get back to that. But I thought that would also be a cool place to create resources, or to create an app, so to speak, through Glide app, with a bunch of different resources. So
Wow.
I wanted to talk about, what are some of the resources that you have that you would be willing to share, and if you, I could put the link to that Google slide or Google sheet, and we could start compiling some resources, and I think that would be a cool sort of crowdsourced project that I could put out, to social media and say, if you have a good resource that you would like to share for distance learning, for physical education or health, we can put it on that app and then send it out to everybody. So, so Jace, what do you think? What are some resources that you've used that have been really successful for you?
Actually, one of the things I just done the past couple of weeks is started having the students look back in their like fundamental movement skills. Granted, they're stuck inside, but they can still take video evidence, break down their skills. They could also do a pre-analysis and a post-analysis of a, like, let's say we're talking about a push-up. They could take their pre-analysis, make a plan, do a post-analysis, and I did this with a spreadsheet, like a Google Sheets, and they could just go down and click on the specific coaching tips and were they good? Were they great? Can they improve? How are they going to do this? And they're getting them really part of that reflective piece. And then towards the end, like I actually saw a lot of improvement in just basic form. So that's one thing I'm starting to develop, like putting in more things. Like let's just talk about like hopping, skipping. A lot of kids running down their hallways showing me their videos, and it was
Yeah.
great to put them in the driver's seat where they get to develop content. They get to assess themselves and then be reflective on how they're going to learn from that.
Yeah, that's cool. I saw that. I remember seeing that tweet that you sent out. I think it was a push-up activity. So I wonder if that's something that we could also share out through that app. Just get kind of a link to that Google Sheet, and then have that be sort of ideas for other types of activities too. Because it's just sort of like a reflection sheet, right? Like you do the activity and then you think about what you can improve, or how did you do that?
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, they go through, they analyze themselves. So I would give down key points on what should your form look like. They had to
Hmm.
assess themselves, so be critical of themselves, take a look at the video. They had to actually draw lines in their pictures and do a video voiceovers like, well, here's my form. They actually had to draw a line from their shoulders down to their ankles, and if the line wasn't straight with their hips, okay, how can you improve that? But all that feedback was given to them in that direction. It's like, draw a line from your shoulders to your toes, like, or your ankles. Are your hips within this line? And have that conversation. So is really putting in the front work to have them be reflective. I'm still giving them quality instruction because now they're using the instruction. They're being critical with it. And that's just really kind of worked out. So just went through specific key points on a push-up. How should this look? How should it look like in your analysis? And where did you fit? Like, was it good, bad, awesome? How do you improve or maintain it?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, and as we talked about before, that's kind of straightforward. It's easy, and it is some sort of meaningful feedback, right? So I should say also, we didn't even address Mel had to go to another meeting, so she dropped out. But I'll get back with her to see if she has any resources that she would like to share as well that I could put into that Google Sheet, share the app with everybody else. So
I
Mark, what about
know.
you?
Well, I know. I don't want to speak on behalf of her, but I know her team, Mel, and I know some of her teammates that she's working with. They have some. I just follow on Twitter, but I know they're using some fun, you know, resources. I don't know the names, but I can get back. I mean, I think what matters most is what age group we're dealing with for sure, and then
Hmm.
how they're going to use it at home. I like for my younger, well, for any age really. I teach 1 to 6, and I think for the younger ones, I like Go Noodle is an easy to use depending on what material you're trying to deliver. But Go Noodle has a ton of stuff on there to keep them active and dancing. And there's yoga, there's mindfulness, there's games they can learn from there. And then with my older ones, I may look into there's the apps like Move It. There's
Yeah,
Where
Jerry
are they?
Robinson.
There's yeah, he's the man. The PE geek. he's got a ton of different stuff out there. I've got a list of them. I can share the list. I actually was with the boys from Macau that I worked with last year, Dom and Danny and Ryan. We put together a Google Doc and just list all the, the recommended apps for PE sites that we could use. I can share that with you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been stealing that off that document.
Yeah. So I go to that when in a time of need, but I can share that with you and see if any of them would be good for getting out to the community.
Yeah, that'd be
There's
awesome.
a ton of them. Yeah.
And a colleague of mine here, we thought a good idea would be for the next week or so, next couple of weeks. We have a week, and then we have spring break, and then we'll see what happens after that, right? But for the next couple of weeks at least, we would make sort of videos for our kids, because I know there's a ton of resources out on the internet, right now, with different activities, different dances, different physical activities that the kids can follow. And I think it's an interesting balance, especially in early years, of activities that have already been created, and activities that you can create yourself. And so I think a lot of kids, especially in the early years, they want to see you. They want to see your face. They want to see you moving.
Absolutely.
They want to see you doing the activity too. So we've created 2 so far, and then as we keep on creating, I'll share out that playlist, or the playlist will get a little bit bigger, I guess. So I can definitely put that in the resources as well. And as we create, I'll upload, and then we can share that to the community as well. So yeah, I think.
And
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think an important thing you said there is the students need to see you, right?
Yeah.
So even if you're not doing, if you're not doing the actual movement or the activity on video for them, at least do an intro of yourself and a greeting. That is one of the requirements that we agreed on. If we do go to e-learning, is, we can share the resources, no problem, but we have to provide something with us in a video or an email or something to show them that we're there, we're doing it too. And then the communication coming back is what's obviously important. And I think for the younger guys, we already talked about Seesaw. I think it's a very easy to use, and Google Classroom, that communication back and forth is so important.
Yeah, and I think that's important for them to be able to see you. I think that's a good point. Go ahead, Jace.
Yeah, and Mark, like you said, something like just a communication piece. Like from the beginning, right from Google Classroom, I would leave comments, just a little, hey, this is great work, or you're missing this piece. And I got a lot of individual messages back saying, you actually sent me a message back. Like they love that communication piece. Having my face-to-face meetings, our first face-to-faces this weekend, a lot of kids are like, we just miss being in the school. We just miss the interactions. And I told them too, is the worst part for me about this is missing the interaction piece. Like half my day is just getting to know the kids, joking with them, interacting with them. And that's why we do this. It's not for the planning, it's not for the pay, it's for that joy of interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And keeping, like we talked about before, keeping that social piece, right? Because everybody needs that social interaction. So I know we're getting to the end of the hour, so I want to say thank you so much for coming on. I know this was a little difficult to get everybody together because we are in different parts of the world, but I think that's what's so cool about it as well. So before we go, where could people find you if they wanted to ask a question, if they wanted to continue the conversation? What's the best way they can get a hold of you, Mark?
I'm on Twitter at Coach VPE, or I'm always open for email. You can email me anytime. I get people communicating also on Facebook, has the International Teachers. I've even helped a guy get a job actually recently. So feel free to contact me, vatsis89@gmail.com. And I also want to thank you for, this is my first time being on a podcast, so I appreciate the opportunity to be on here and share some things with you guys.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you. Thanks for coming on. And so
Yeah.
if you need a job, hit up Mark, right? So we got that
I
going.
can try my best.
All right, Jace,
It's all about
where could people
networking in
find?
this industry.
Well, that's awesome. So I'm also on Twitter as well. You can find me at grand_muchacho. Ask me why it's that name, and I'll tell you why. And I refuse to change it. Just there's a story behind it. I did a podcast with Dale Sidebottom, and he asked me that question: why do you have this Twitter handle? I'm like, well, here's the story. I'll let you up to the podcast. Go find that one.
We're gonna have to bring you back now. Little teaser, little teaser.
Exactly. Or you can find me. So I've recently just started my kind of like my own little website at tincanphys.com. You can find me there where I'm posting some of my blogs. You can contact me that way, or at jace.ferguson at tincanphys.com. That's also a good way to get emails to me as well. It's also been great to see, like, if you guys can't see this, but the setup that Jorge has in his house for his podcast is just mind blowing, and it just really makes me wonder what I could do with my third bedroom in my apartment.
You can make it into a podcast studio.
Like, he's got the stand and the sound dampening on the wall. Like, it's awesome.
Well, this is actually going to go up on YouTube, so people might be able to see what's going on.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And Mel, thank you for coming on as well. And like I said, I'll put all this information in the show notes, and we'll start creating that resource document so that we can share out to the world. So thank you, guys, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Thanks for having me on again.
All right, thanks.
All right, you take care. Stay safe.